Hi, thank you so much for being here with us this evening. My name is Amanda DeGrace, and I am the owner and founder of Little Lotus Yoga. And I'm very excited to have the beautiful and wonderful Jessie Lindley with me this evening. And we are here to chat about fertility and nutrition. As most of you know, it's Fertility Awareness Week in Canada this week. You may have seen the hashtag 1in6, hashtag CA or CIAW or Fertility Matters, and you're probably going to see a lot more of them this week. We have a lot of women in our Little Lotus community who are on different fertility journeys, and we want to just do whatever we can to help them feel supported and have the resources that they would like while they're on this journey. So I'm excited to have Jessie with us here tonight. Welcome, Jessie.
Thank you for having me. Thanks. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, wonderful. Do you want to let us know a little bit about you and what you do?
Of course. So I'm Jessie Lindley. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. I specialize in women's reproductive health, specifically fertility being my passion. I practice out of the Sunrise Wellness Center in Ottawa, and I'm also the in-house nutritionist for Eating Well Ottawa. We're a local organic produce and grocery delivery company. So my practice is both men and women, because as we'll be talking about, fertility is only not just the female half of the equation. I basically talk about food and ovaries all the time.
Wonderful. It's so true. I think a lot of times when we are talking about infertility, a lot of times the focus is on the women, and there tends to be, what I've seen, a lot more resources available for women. But the fact of the matter is that it takes sperm to reproduce as well. And that can come in from various people, depending on the situation, whether they're going through fertility treatments or whether it's a couple who are trying to conceive on their own. And I hear a lot from women in our community. They feel really lonely and they feel isolated, and they feel the pressure on them as women to, okay, something's wrong, I need to fix it. And a lot of times we aren't looking at, there's two people in the equation that it takes to make a baby.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about, everyone wants to know, what should they be eating for optimal fertility, and, what foods or, what different should they be eating more from one food group than the other? And, how should they be looking at planning their meals?
Right. Okay, well, it does vary per person depending on the root cause of the infertility. If somebody has PCOS, then there's blood sugar issues in there. But in general, what I find is that mostly for women, eating healthy has generally meant eating to lose weight, which equals restriction. So a lot of the women who come to see me, the number one thing we do is, one, make sure that they're eating enough good quality whole foods. 1,500 calories is not enough calories for anyone above the age of 10. But all calories are not created equal. I talk more about nutrients than I do about calories. So when someone comes to see me and fertility is a concern, we need to bring your body out of a state of stress, and being nutrient deficient is a stressed state. So number one, eating enough good quality food. And also I talk about fat a lot. Fat is kind of the macronutrient. It's kind of every decade.
And it's taboo for so many people. I think so many people don't understand the value, and we still see, like low fat muffins and low fat sour cream, and people think, oh, I'm going to get low fat because it's going to be better for me overall. But the fact of the matter is, it's not usually the better choice.
I would say it's never the better choice. And I think we're going to look back in 50 years when we've had time to do some investigating as to why 1 in 6 couples in Canada struggle with infertility. And I really think, I grew up in the 80s and 90s during the low fat craze. And a lot of my cohort, a lot of my loved ones who've had trouble starting families also did. So eating low fat during our formative reproductive years when you consider that fat, cholesterol is the foundational building block of all sex hormones. So conception, just going through a women's cycle, there's a lot that has to happen. And if our body is chronically short of a basic building block that it needs to do things, things are going to become out of balance. And particularly since a lot of us, myself included, I was on birth control for 15 years, never thought twice about it. So if something's out of balance...
We were never told otherwise.
No.
I don't remember as a teenager being told, if you choose to go on the pill, here are the possible repercussions and how it's going to affect your whole mind, body, and spirit. I don't remember any discussion over it.
There wasn't. I went on birth control because I had heavy periods, because I had really severe acne and PMS symptoms. And so the remedy for that, rather than looking at those as all being red flags of our body saying something's out of whack here, I was put on birth control, which masked the symptoms. So one of the big wake-up calls for me was realizing when I went off birth control in my late 20s, I didn't get my period for a year. And so those symptoms didn't go away. So something was out of balance for the 15 years that I was on birth control. And that's the heartbreaking part, is that our body is really communicative. Our body really tells us what's going on. It's just a matter of whether or not we know what to look for, because we're not taught to. It's the biggest reason why I ended up in this part of nutrition, is because I really passionately believe that we have the right to know how our body works, and that the impact of the decisions that we're going to be making, not just on us, but on future generations, at 16, if you told me that going on birth control might one day impact my ability to have babies, it wouldn't have meant as much, which is why, it's obviously age appropriate how you coax that, but definitely the knowledge, we're not taught about the impact of our choices on our health. Yeah. At all. So,
and I think a lot of times when, and I'm speaking for myself, but kind of generalizing, when we think there's a problem with our health, that there's something going on with our bodies and something's not feeling right, the first place we normally go is to our doctor. And, we have fantastic doctors out there. I'm not knocking doctors at all, but they're not experts in nutrition and, holistic living with all the other factors and things, our environment and everything that we're absorbing and ingesting. Yeah. And they don't know what they don't know until they know. And when we go to our doctors looking for answers, sometimes the symptoms are just kind of masked of, here, take this, it will help, but it's not getting to that root problem. And, it's not always to the ill fact of the doctors, because they may not know how to get to the root problem, or that there is a root problem to face. And so I think it's so wonderful to have wonderful resources and experts in our community, such as your help.
Absolutely.
When we connect with you, you're able to teach people things that we're not going to learn necessarily when we go to the doctor. So you mentioned about healthy fats. What are some healthy fats? What should we be looking for to incorporate healthy fats in our diets?
Well, just quickly, and our medical doctors are amazing. If I get hit by a bus, take me to a medical doctor. And it's not that they are not keeping up with the latest medical research. It's a blind spot in their paradigm. Their paradigm doesn't allow them to see what I look for, which is why having a multifaceted team of practitioners, a medical doctor, a naturopath, a nutritionist, a physiotherapist, we all bring something else to the table. And then you get a clear picture of what's going on. So in terms of healthy fat, coconut oil is one that, 50 uses for coconut oil. It circulates the blogosphere regularly. I whip it into my herbal tea, like my red rooibos tea. Bulletproof coffee has become a phenomenon. If you guys haven't heard of that, there's Dave Asprey, a biohacking gentleman in California. He does grass-fed butter and coconut oil and MCT oil, which is like a concentrated coconut oil, into his coffee. Coffee and caffeine is one of those things, depending on where someone is on the fertility journey, it can be harming more than contributing. So we do kind of a fertility-loving herbal tea with coconut oil.
Okay.
Coconut oil, chia seeds. Chia seeds are they're probably my number one fertility superfood, for lack of a better word, because all foods have amazing capabilities. Because chia seeds, they don't taste like anything. You can add them to smoothies. You can make chia seed pudding. I even put them in our tomato sauce the other day.
Wow, I haven't thought about that one.
Well, my partner, who's really open-minded when it comes to food, he was like, "Is there chia seed in my pasta sauce?" I'm like, "There is."
Because I'm thinking, for me, something like that with some veggies and the spices, my kids probably wouldn't notice.
It looks like black pepper.
Yeah.
And upping the fat of that dish helps to balance out the carbohydrates of whatever pasta you're choosing, be that quinoa pasta or buckwheat pasta or whatever else. So chia seeds, avocados, I probably eat an avocado a day. I have an avocado a day challenge that I do with my clients within the first month of a protocol, just because they're full of really, Miranda says she puts them in meatloaf. The chia seeds, she does. This is true. She's got a great recipe on her blog doing that.
Miranda, you'll have to drop the recipe in your blog in the comments so we can we can see that.
Avocados are full of saturated fat. So there's different kinds of fat, and saturated fat is one of the particular fats that are really supportive of fertility. Yes, chia and everything. That'd be my partner. Hi, Andrew.
Even stuff you may not even know about, Andrew.
No, so many things he doesn't know about. So avocados, tons of soluble fiber and saturated fat. What else do I do? Grass-fed butter, if you can tolerate dairy, butter or ghee. Ghee is a clarified butter where a lot of the lactose solids have been removed. So if you're avoiding dairy, those are kind of my big ones. But then sesame seeds have a ton of fat in them. So tahini, so a traditional staple in Middle Eastern diets. I make my own just by grinding up sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds, nuts. I tend to soak my nuts before consuming them. It makes them a little bit more easy to digest. So kind of all those kind of crunchy type of things. So, and find the fat is another challenge that every single one of my clients, it's week 2 generally in a fertility protocol, because it's generally the thing missing from our plate. So training people to reconstruct we're really good at finding the protein. There's usually a skinless, boneless chicken breast, and we're really good at trying to avoid the carbohydrates, grain-based carbohydrates. There are carbohydrates in vegetables too, but we're not really good.
I think a lot of people don't know, right?
Stop hating on the
carbs, and I'm like, but you're eating all this fruit,
Yes. There's a big difference between complex carbohydrates and refined carbohydrates that come from refined flours and grains. I really, particularly with the rise of kind of the ketogenic diet, everyone's hating on the carbs. And we, particularly if there's any kind of hormone imbalance going on, complex carbohydrates are really important for our endocrine system, particularly for women, which is why going super low carb for women can exacerbate fertility problems. Sweet potatoes, squash, like spaghetti squash, butternut squash, acorn squash, all those kind of foods are a really important part of a fertility diet.
So what should we be avoiding? Because a lot of times I find people, it's harder for them to maybe implement some of these new things. So they tend to ask, okay, well, just what shouldn't I have?
Right. And the thing is that I really do focus on incorporating new foods into the diet before we start pushing anything out.
Because when we just take out, a lot of times we're left with nothing.
Right. And if you're hungry and sad, then, the reproductive system is the most delicate system in the body. So being sad and hungry is just as fertility inhibiting as it would be to probably eat what you were going to consume. So generally we start adding lots of cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and anything dark, leafy green. Once you start adding foods onto the plate, it naturally pushes a lot of what are less optimal choices off of our plates. Just because if you prioritize the newer foods, which if you put in, butter and salt goes a long way to making veggies really good. And just steaming your vegetables, like, that's not fun. And nobody should just be eating their vegetables steamed, because you're missing an opportunity to put fat on your food.
Right.
Yeah. But in terms of what to avoid, I mean, anything refined, anything that's not in its natural form. So refined flours, like wheat flour particularly. Gluten isn't evil, but gluten is universally difficult to digest and can be very inflammatory. And usually there's a digestive component to all fertility issues. So minimizing gluten and diversifying your grains. There's a whole world of grains out there that we don't tend to experience because we are so focused on wheat. Refined sugar, so candy, and particularly inflammatory oils. So fat is one of those things that can be really awesome and supportive of your fertility and your health, or it can be really inflammatory. So any kind of refined, processed, man-made oils, like canola oil. There are very few vegetable oil. Grapeseed oil is one of those ones that people are on the fence about, but I say if you're on the fence, just pick a different one.
Right.
There's nothing that it adds to your diet. So those are kind of the top three. For the most part, I don't go home and have people clean out their cupboards to start with, but there are a few things that if they tell me they have them in their home, they go home and they text me a picture of them throwing it out. And it's canola oil, vegetable oil, margarine, if you have margarine in your fridge and you're trying to love on your
the amount of arguments I've had with
people think I'm insane.
Well, and it tends to be older people of the older generation who, they're like, no, it has to be margarine. I'm like, no, get rid of the margarine. Butter, real butter only, no margarine. Yeah. And it's, that lifestyle and that generation of it's in their mind of has to be margarine, has to be low fat. So they think anything else is so bad and real butter is going to make me sick. And that's why I need to have my margarine. And so it's hard to educate. And I'm sure it's hard for a lot of those who are on their fertility journey and are trying to really look at nutrition wise, what they're bringing into their bodies on this journey, when they have family members who are saying, well, no, you don't need that. You shouldn't be having that avocado and all that butter and all those nuts as well. And you've had way too much fat today. And that's the problem. And it can be challenging to try to re-educate those people around us.
And because We've dramatically changed in the last 50 years how our food is produced, who produces it, what we eat. And most of the conversation around food is coming from the people who are marketing it to us, who don't have our best interest at heart. And if 1 in 6, our bodies are super smart. They're really well-designed machines. And if your body is inhibiting conception, then there's a reason. We just have to find out what that is. And I really do find I'm a big believer in the minor factors theory, that it's never just one thing. Usually, and one thing, so food intolerances can often contribute to infertility. If food intolerances on their own wouldn't be enough to inhibit conception, but you add some blood sugar instability issues to some food intolerances, to the fact that you sleep 5 hours a night. Sleep is a big one. It doesn't matter if you eat a perfect diet, if you are not sleeping, giving yourself enough opportunity to get some good quality sleep. So there's a lot of kind of little things that when you add them all together, then they magnify each other.
And I think a lot of times, we're looking for that, like, what's the one thing I need to change that's going to help me conceive? And like you've said, a lot of times, there's other factors that play into it, and we need to look at the whole picture. It's really hard. I mean, sometimes there's those cases where, yes, it is just one thing. And, once we understand what that one thing is and that we can, get them help in that situation, then maybe that helps them along their journey. But, it's not as easy usually as, here's the one thing that you need to change and you will be able to conceive right away. And I think that's, a hard part for couples and women who are on this journey of, they're willing to try anything they can, but it can be really overwhelming too of what am I going to try first? Because if I try them all at the same time, it's hard to sustain that lifestyle. It's hard to change your entire diet and to be getting more sleep and to reduce your number of work hours and stress levels all at once. It can become very overwhelming.
For sure. And we also have to, and that's part of the reason why I really do believe if we educate throughout the life of a woman, then we can, most cultures around the world, even now in the 21st century, have cultural traditions to help prepare for conception. Generally, they're pre-marriage rituals. But if you look at a lot of the foods that a couple would consume leading up to, like in the feast leading up to a wedding, it's organ meats and like super rich, fat, amazing foods. And we just don't do that. So it can be so overwhelming. Absolutely. And I think part of it too is that I'm no one's first stop. They're like, I can't conceive, I'm going to go see a nutritionist. Like, said no one ever. Everyone has been to see everyone else before they end up with me. And they're generally like, I will try anything, even this crazy eating fat thing.
And I think at that point too, for a lot of them, because a lot of times, you'll go to your family doctor and they'll say, okay, have you been trying to conceive for a year? And if you haven't been trying to conceive for a year and you're under, they seem to have the magic age still of 35, then go back home and keep trying. And then they wait that year and then they finally get referred to a fertility clinic. And then they've been at the fertility clinic and, then they're saying, I need something else. But, I think it's so important that we start looking at other resources that are extremely valuable, such as yourself and other nutritionists earlier on in the journey.
Because I think a lot of couples who come to see me, and a third of the cases of infertility in Canada are unexplained, which means within the conventional medical paradigm, none of their tools can explain why this is happening. And for those third of the 1 in 6, IVF might not be necessary. It could be a matter of a lot of women don't know when they ovulate. And if there's not enough time, if there's not like 13 or 14 days between ovulation and when you get your period, it doesn't matter if you're producing the most beautiful eggs in the world, you're not going to conceive. For a lot of women, that is low progesterone and thyroid issues across the board. There's a lot of things that aren't tested for within conventional medical, like fertility center treatments that have a huge impact on your body's ability to conceive and maintain a pregnancy. So
I know I have low progesterone in all of my pregnancies. And so the moment I know I conceive, I go on progesterone for about 14 weeks. But I've talked to a lot of women who have experienced miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And they're not getting answers why until I've asked them, you check, here's my experience, and my experience is low progesterone. They were like, my doctor said nothing about that. Like, I don't even know if they're testing for that. And they go back and, sometimes that's it and sometimes that's not it, but it's just that they're not even aware that could play a factor.
Could it be a factor?
And why they are possibly miscarrying as well. I mean, miscarriages unfortunately are very common. They're more common than we even know. One in 4 pregnancies are thought to end in miscarriages. And I always say, that's because those are the people who are actually telling us that they've miscarried and the people that they've studied and researched. And I'm sure there's a lot more women out there than the 1 in 4 who are experiencing miscarriages as well.
Yeah. So, and as much as there are a million things to consider, and that's part of the reason why you go to see a practitioner like a nutritionist or a naturopath, because you don't have to know everything on your own. You don't have to wade through the tons of research out there. Like, literally, there's so much. You go to
Dr. Google. Turn off Dr. Google.
Stop. Back away. Go to see a practitioner who will look at your symptoms and pick the specific things that you need to start with first. I have a nutritionist. I have a naturopath, because we can't see ourselves clearly, even if you knew everything there was to know about fertility. And I know a lot because it's basically all I do. I still can't help myself the same way somebody else can. So, I mean, low progesterone across the board, every single person who comes to see me who has fertility issues, there is some symptoms of low progesterone. And part of what I think a lot of people don't realize is that progesterone and cortisol compete for the same building blocks in our body. So we all know that we need to incorporate more self-care, we need to sleep more, we need to learn to manage our stress. We know that, but that's often like the first thing we start with. I talk more about going like detoxifying your home and managing your stress levels than I do even about food. Food is important, but if you're not addressing those two factors, then I will feed you perfect food and there will still be tiny humans in your life. Yeah. And if I can't meditate, I love yoga, but I can't do yoga. I'm terrible at it and I really hate it. I need to do more of it. But, you really have to ask the question, like, what do I need to do to hit reset?
Right.
Like, if a self-care isn't like painting your nails and going to the spa, for me, self-care is finding reasons to laugh. For me, laughter is my self-care strategy. Yeah. It's my dog and walking him and him being ridiculous. And, I
got a little one, she will make her way down from bed soon to come. And I am single parenting this evening. So my kind of two biggest things are like have a conversation of yourself. What brings you joy? I go to choir once a month, Capital City Community Choir, because singing brings me joy, which will help reduce my cortisol levels, which will help increase my progesterone levels. So yeah, and it's finding those things that bring us joy. And as adults, a lot of times we don't allow us to have those moments of joy, and we forget what it's like to be playful and young at heart, and we're so focused on work and things that are happening on the outside world that we need to come back within.
For sure. Absolutely.
So I know that, I hear a lot about essential oils these days, and, there's great benefits of essential oils, and, you're seeing a lot of it online and people posting about it. But, can you explain to us a little bit about how essential oils could possibly help support someone on their fertility journey?
For sure. So I incorporate essential oils into probably 95 of my fertility clients' protocols. I'll just say that not all essential oils are created equal. There's no regulation in Canada at all. So it's definitely one of those things that ask someone who, hi Nick, one of my clients, she's one of my fertility clients. Definitely essential oils are amazing for her. So definitely ask a practitioner, because that's what we do. We know what to look for. It's like going to a wall of supplements. Like, how do I pick a B complex? Like, I have no idea. So essential oils are so trendy, but there's such a variation in terms of quality. So there are two companies that I use essential oils from. Living Libations, who's based out of Northern Ontario. They're amazing. And doTERRA. Those are the two companies that I source for, because they provide independent third-party testing, and I know they're safe.
Which is so important. And I think a lot of people don't wade through that research where they see like,
it's really hard.
Here's the test results that they've gotten, but they don't understand who sponsored that test results and who did those test results and where did they come from.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's part of, because they become so popular, a lot of the people producing essential oils know that the consumers don't know what to ask for. They don't know that 100% pure essential oil means nothing. Therapeutic grade means nothing. Most of them don't have ingredients on them. And during my research, I got cease and desist letters from a couple of very popular essential oil companies just for asking for ingredients. So it's definitely one of those things where, because whatever we put onto our skin, which is why I'm so passionate about body care products and kind of looking what you're using, what goes in our skin goes directly into our bloodstream. It doesn't even have the benefit of going through our digestive system, where we're designed to filter out toxins using our liver and our kidneys. Like, what goes on your skin doesn't go through that. So I don't put anything on my skin that I wouldn't eat, which sounds crazy, but it's really a really good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
So I use essential oils to help support fertility in a number of ways. The first one being, to manage stress and to support sleep. Because as soon as you are sleeping a little bit better, life is a lot easier, which means your body is taking a bit of a deep breath. Because you also have to go through life. You have to like your partner. You have to parent your kids, because secondary infertility is more common than primary infertility. Just because someone has one baby doesn't mean that they're not struggling with infertility too. So wild orange is probably I bathe in it pretty much. It helps to manage perceived stress levels in the body. It can be very supportive in helping cortisol dysregulation, so producing cortisol when we're not supposed to, not producing it when we are supposed to. Lavender is a really big one. I struggled with some hardcore adrenal fatigue coming out of nutrition school and starting to build my practice. And lavender is how I started sleeping through the night again. Lavender and wild orange. So that combo is really helpful for a lot of people, because the more sleep you get, the more opportunity your body has to detoxify. And the more detoxification that happens, the easier of a time your liver has. Oh, do we have a tiny person joining us? And then along the kind of detoxification stream. Oh my goodness. So sleep and mood, because smelling essential oils, it's not just that it makes us feel better. What we inhale, we are ingesting. And there's so we're inhaling.
And that's the scary part, I find, of people.
Yeah.
We walk in the aisles of the grocery store now, in the pharmacy, and there's all these walls of essential oils, and they're not the top grade to putting into our body and bringing into our homes.
No, people don't realize that if the synthetic signature is identical to the natural compound, it doesn't have to be labeled synthetic. So I would say 80% of the oils out there are synthetic. So people think that they're making a more natural choice. Like I hear tea tree is a more natural skincare product, or I hear lavender is helpful for sleep. And a lot of people using them with their kids because it's all over that essential oils are the natural choice. So I talk way more about essential oil safety than I even do about the properties of the oils, just because there's so much misinformation out there. So I use essential oils also help to kind of support hormone balance. Clary sage and thyme are two that I use a lot to help support low progesterone and to help kind of bring estrogen back down into a healthy ratio with progesterone. It's probably my most common roller bottle. So I combine clary sage and thyme, some fractionated coconut oil, a little homemade roller bottle, apply it to the outsides and insides of the ankles. For a cycle, and then just for the first 2 weeks. And it is amazing for helping to bring someone's cycle from like 40 days back to 30, from 21 days to 30, helping to reduce premenstrual symptoms like moodiness or cramping, bloating. Like all of those are signs that something's out of balance. We think PMS is normal. It's not normal. It may be common, but it is not normal. Yeah.
So where can people find more information if they wanted to work with you, if they want to get more information on nutrition, essential oils, how can they find you?
I'll post it in the comments. So my website is nutritionottawa.ca. And I also have a closed Facebook group for natural fertility and wellness, self-care, essential oils, and nutrition, where we talk about all the things that we're talking about here tonight. So I'll also post that into the comments if people would like.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great night.
Thanks. Good night.